Hey guys, what's up? We're doing a Glen's WWE thoughts video, which we haven't done in a very long time. Uh, there was a couple of big things that went down this past week on Smackdown, and I get that fans are kind of have mixed opinions about what actually happened and why it happened, etc., and so forth. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But the real focus of what I wanted to talk about is why really these things weren't really that bad, even if you were somewhat optimistic, you might not have been completely optimistic, and so forth. Obviously, the two things based on the title screen, I'm sure you can tell we're talking about obviously Daniel Bryan's heel turn and the fact that Becky Lynch is out of Survivor Series now. Um, and I'm going to even go into detail on we're probably going to talk a little bit more about Becky's situation than Daniel's, but um, nonetheless, uh, this is something I kind of want to talk about. And no, not just because I'm absolutely in love with Becky Lynch, but yeah. Anyways, so let's talk about Daniel Bryan first. So yeah, Daniel Bryan is the new WWE champion, and he went heel. Um, I agree that the timing is very suspect. Let's get one thing right out of the way. The biggest issue that the WWE has with this whole Survivor Series booking is the fact that because of Evolution and Crown Jewel and everything else, the WWE just has not had enough time to actually build up Survivor Series properly. Um, and I think that's a huge problem. For it being one of the big four and so forth, it's really gotten no love. Um, it's only been given a really a 2 week build. Um, and I think the timing of Roman Reigns uh, having to take time off um, really kind of put a squash on the WWE's plans. I do not believe for a second that the intention was to have Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles again. I have no doubt that originally the thought process was going to be it was going to be Roman Reigns versus AJ Styles, and when the title became vacant on Raw, they had no choice but to put it on somebody. Now, why they chose Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman, I'm not really too sure. Um, I don't know, but that's a debate for a different day. But anyways, uh, I think the reason why the WWE has changed Daniel Bryan was for a couple reasons. One, I think, or not why he turned him heel, but why they made him champion last minute was one because I think there did seem to be a lot of negativity to like, do we really want to see AJ versus Brock Lesnar again? Because I think the general feeling was is they're not going to let AJ beat Brock Lesnar anyways. So do we really want to see Brock Lesnar beat him again? Um, I don't know that Daniel Bryan's going to win either. I can't see that happening, but I think that was part of it. The other reason, uh, the heel turn, and this is why I don't think this is a bad thing, at least from this perspective, is that I think Daniel Bryan turning heel is actually a good thing. Yes, it does raise questions of how did we get to the supposed payoff of The Miz versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Most people assumed that it was going to be The Miz somehow winning the title back between now and WrestleMania, and Daniel Bryan winning the Royal Rumble. Um, that was definitely a strong possibility. I don't think that was the plan, though, ever. I don't think this was the plan either, but I don't think that was the plan. And obviously, now with Daniel Bryan being a heel as well, do him and The Miz suddenly become buddy buddy? Do we turn The Miz face, which honestly I don't think would work now, or at least not in the current condition? There would have to be a more slow, gradual drought to it. Can't just have The Miz flip on a dime. Um, But at the end of the day, I think Daniel Bryan becoming a heel is actually a good thing. And the reason why is because, to be fair, although everyone was super excited to see Daniel Bryan come back from what was supposed to be a career-ending injury, um, and coming out of retirement and everything, fans kind of soured on him quickly. He does not have that same popularity and momentum that he had the first time because he's not fighting the Authority. As much as the fans hated that it appeared like, here's the thing, and this is again another debate for another day. There are people that still think that WWE had no intentions of ever having Daniel Bryan win back at WrestleMania 30. And maybe that's true, and I'm not saying that's the thing. This is why I say it's a debate, because I'm not saying that that's wrong. It may be right, but it is also entirely possible that the WWE played out their plan exactly how it was always planned. That Daniel Bryan was going to continue to be beaten down, beaten down, beaten down. The perception was that that WWE had no faith in him in reality, so why not portray that on TV and then finally give them the big payoff at WrestleMania? That's good booking, period. And maybe that always was the plan. We don't know. It maybe it probably wasn't. Like again, it is more likely that it was just the WWE giving in and realizing they couldn't fight this anymore. But all that momentum's gone now. And the reason why it's gone is because part of the reason why Daniel Bryan was so popular was because of the fight against authority, the norm. Much like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vince McMahon back in the Attitude Era, Daniel Bryan versus the authority was kind of that modern take on that. And because of that, I believe this is why uh, the WWE has decided to turn Daniel Bryan heel. I think it's been rushed. I think it was probably going to be a more slow build to it. I don't think it was going to happen this quickly, but I think that was the plan all along. Um, I've heard a couple of people sit there go, "Oh, this is silly. Why is he heel?" And the Bellas. It's like, well, the Bellas turned heel too, so this isn't really that odd. Um, Again, it does raise questions about what happens with him and the Miz now going forward. If anything, do they just ignore them and they don't have much contact with each other? Who knows? Um, Again, I think the timing's a little off, and it's obviously rushed because of the lack of planning, pre-planning for Survivor Series because of all the other shows going on. But ultimately, I do believe it is the plan, and it was the plan to turn him heel, and I ultimately also believe that it was meant to be Daniel Bryan. Like Daniel Bryan was going to go heel anyways eventually. Um, so yeah, that's my thought on Daniel Bryan. Um, and we'll see where they go with this now. Like we'll see how it happens at Survivor Series. We'll see how that goes down with Brock Lesnar. And we'll see where they go with this forward. How because again he's clearly gone full heel. He did the low blow. He beat up the thing. He had the evil smile. Um, and the fans did boo on him, and rightfully so. I think for some fans, not a lot, but I think for a lot of fans, this to them was kind of the equivalent of Hulk Hogan turning heel for the first time. Granted, Daniel Bryan's been a heel before, so this isn't quite the same, but I think for some people it felt the same way. This was a guy who fans rallied behind. He was the underdog. He was the guy that always would do the right thing, and he turned heel. Um, so I think some people are taking it hard from that perspective as well. Um, so that's my thoughts on Daniel Bryan. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about was, of course, Becky Lynch. Um, so now, as many people know, I love Becky Lynch. Like I'm in love with her. Like honestly, um, and I think the work. I think she's always been fantastic. I've always been behind her as a fan. Um, but I think this work since she uh, stabbed Charlotte in the back or whatever you want to call it after SummerSlam and so forth, I think is some of the best work she's ever done. I love this kind of, I'm going to call it a tweener. Not that tweeners really exist in wrestling anymore. Because she is, even though, yeah, she is kind of a heel, she's also kind of a face. She accepts the fans' support for the most part, but she does things her way. She doesn't care if she offends people. She doesn't care if the fans are upset. She says what she wants to say. She speaks her mind. Again, almost a lot of people are referring to it as kind of like Stone Cold Steve Austin back in the day, and fans are getting behind it as they should. Um, it's probably the best thing going on in the WWE right now. Um, the build up for the fight against Ronda Rousey at Survivor Series was doing really well. The invasion on Raw at the end of Raw was fantastic. Um, but as we know, she got clipped by Nia. And honestly, here's the thing. Yeah, there was a lot of blood, but even in the picture that I've got posted right now, there is some bruising, and I can understand a concussion, but broken face seems a little off. Um, I don't believe she actually has any broken bones. And there is actually some people that are saying that um, the WWE did this on purpose. I even heard somebody say like they told Nia to purposely injure Becky, like black and blue, like bruise her up, make her cut her open the hard way or whatever, um, to add that realism so that they could use as an excuse to take Becky out. Here's the thing: I'm not here to debate whether the injury's real or not, or whether this is just an angle, or whether it's a legitimate thing. I personally believe it's legitimate only because at the end of this interview that Becky did on SmackDown after she picked Charlotte to replace her, when you saw her standing at the entranceway holding up the title, it looked like she was legitimately trying to hold back tears, because I think it does, to me, it felt like she was legitimately upset that she wasn't going to get to compete at Survivor Series, and that she wasn't going to get to have this match with Ronda Rousey, which I believe she was looking forward to, legitimately, like as a real human being, not just as the man character that she's portraying right now on TV. Um, that said, um, whether it was fake or not, or real or not, or whether the injury is legitimate or not, or whether this is a work, is irrelevant in my opinion. And although yes, I'm disappointed that whether it's legit or not that Becky's going to be on the shelf for a little bit. Um, if you look at it from a booking standpoint, this is actually perfect. So we all know that Ronda's basically untouchable right now. The WWE put the title on her pretty quick. She basically beats everybody. Um, you know, and I don't think I would see that changing anytime soon. That means that had this match gone on as planned, as hardcore as the fans are behind Becky because she is by far probably the most popular superstar in WWE right now, I don't think they would have let Becky win. Um, they probably would have had Ronda go over, and although I don't think it would have hurt Becky completely, it still would have hurt a little bit, her character a little bit, because maybe she's not as badass as she says she is. Um, so whether this is being booked out of necessity or whether it was always planned to be this way, I think taking her out of the match was a great idea, because now you're protecting Becky's image. She doesn't have to take the loss to Ronda. A lot of people are going on about like it's weird, she just said that Charlotte's always trying to take her spotlight, but then she chooses Charlotte. She even hugs Charlotte afterwards and so forth, and like all in the name of quote unquote unity of SmackDown and brand loyalty and so forth, which, in my opinion, is always one of the worst parts about the Survivor Series build-ups. Is always um, that we're supposed to believe that everyone can just put their differences aside, no problem. Um, that again, that said, um, I think this is perfect booking. Um, I think it's like a case of, like they said, it's like it's still a respect that Becky still understands that Charlotte is as good as she says she is, and that she does truly believe that Charlotte's the only one that maybe has a chance to beat Ronda. Um, with that said, now when Ronda beats Charlotte, this is perfect because it can now continue the feud with Becky and Charlotte. Because Becky can blame Charlotte for losing a match that I wouldn't have lost. Um, and that would be something that they could go and keep doing. They could prolong the feud when does step back in the ring. They can keep going at it and maybe even build up to a Becky versus Ronda match at WrestleMania, which I think would go over huge. At which point, protecting Ronda wouldn't be important anymore by then. At which point, if they wanted to make Becky really go over the top, they could have her beat Ronda. Um, and that's honestly what I think the plan more or less is. At least in the short term, I do believe that the plan is the reason why they chose Charlotte was so that Charlotte could lose and Becky can then continue her hate for Charlotte because of it's her fault that she lost. She lost her match and blah blah blah. I think that's the thing, and I think it's going to work out really really well, assuming that either a the injuries will work and or that she's not on the shelf for too long if it is a legitimate injury. Um, Unfortunately, if it is a legitimate injury, which unfortunately I suspect it is, and it does end up being more serious, especially if there is a legitimate concussion, we know how serious concussions can be in wrestling. Alexa Bliss currently is not working because of it, apparently, or at least that's the rumor. We all know what happened to Daniel Bryan. He was on the shelf for many years. We know what ended Christopher Nowinski's career and others in the past. Um, and of course, we all know the tragedy of Chris Benoit. So Neil, and here's the thing, in case some people didn't know, Becky Lynch actually, when she was training to be a wrestler originally, actually retired because of a head injury, like Daniel Bryan did. But she made a recovery and she was able to come back and then eventually make it to the WWE as she always dreamed of doing. That's why she had those other jobs that Ronda referred to during her promo. Was because she couldn't wrestle anymore at that point. But fortunately for her and for us as fans of Becky Lynch, she managed to make a comeback, and that's great. Um, but because she has the history, if this is a legitimate concussion, it could be very severe, and it could end up ending her career permanently. And I hope that's not the case. Or it could at least keep her on the shelf for a very long time, which would also be very unfortunate. But if it is clearly she's legitimately injured, I don't think that's makeup. I'm pretty sure that isn't legitimate bruise and so forth. So I'm sure she's going to have to take time off regardless. Um, I don't want to see Becky get more seriously hurt because she rushes back too quickly. Um, like most fans, I get invested not just in the characters that I care about, like Becky, but in all the characters. I don't want to see people get hurt in the ring. That's not why I watch wrestling. Um, it doesn't matter who it is. Like again, case in point, you don't look no further than Roman Reigns, one of the most uh, hated guys by the majority of fans. But when he made that announcement, you saw people like stop and go and remember that these guys are human beings. They're there to entertain you, and you got to feel for them no matter what. So hopefully, um, regardless of how severely Becky is injured at the moment, hopefully she gets well and gets well soon. But hopefully she takes the time she needs and doesn't try to rush back into the ring as well. Um, since she has that history with head injuries, I don't want to see her come back and you know end up a vegetable or something. Um, so that's that. But from a story standpoint, I think this is, although it's disappointing, I think it's probably the best course of action for the Becky Charlotte dynamic and this women's division on SmackDown. And I think it does a great job of keeping Becky protected against a potential loss against Ronda Rousey. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Tell me what you think in the comments if you'd like. Um, I'd love to hear other people's opinions on this. If you agree, disagree, it doesn't matter. Just keep it civil, obviously, please. But that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Um, and we'll catch you again soon, hopefully. Thanks. Take care.